companies, global brands see is that in a country like India, you could add a European country equivalent of consumers every year, and of which only about 5-6 million have a subscription of, let's say, Netflix claim subscription is in the region of 5-6 million.
Yes.
Since he's been making films. So from the 3 Idiots to Munna Bhai to 1942 to Parinda, I mean, there are so many films, cult as well as, super hits that are there. There is a huge market for you in India. All the luxury car brands, all the luxury real estate brands in India are booming. But on the other hand, there is a very large number of consuming class who are at the edge of, I would call, destitution.
Hi everyone, this is Devleena, welcoming you all to another exciting episode of Icons Behind Brands, and a very special guest with me today, Mr. Diptakirti Chaudhuri, currently the business head at Vinod Chopra's Film, brings a wealth of experience from his tenure at Bajaj Auto, Manipal Global Education and HT Media. Join us as we unravel the secrets of his remarkable career from the automotive industry to education to media. Welcome to the captivating episode of Icons Behind Brand. A very warm welcome to you, Diptakirti.
Thank you so much, Devleena. Thank you for having me.
It would be easy for us to connect the dots from where you have started, where you have reached. So a little about your professional journey and background would really set the context for the today's conversation.
Sure. So my professional journey, you mentioned most of it, at least the marketing part of my journey, which has been in, before this, I was in Bajaj Auto, Manipal Global and HT Media for varying periods in time. The part before that is when I spent about 7 odd years in sales in various FMCG companies like Marico, PepsiCo, and Reckitt Benckiser. And Reckitt Benckiser is a place I joined from campus. I did my MBA from XLRI Jamshedpur, and prior to that, I did my engineering from Jadavpur University.
So I'm sure you must have witnessed the kind of customers also, and the markets are very different, from the automotive to media and education and so on. So let's understand from how the market works. So how do you feel that the social and cultural factors that influence the behavior in the rural market?
Feel is that over the last several years, the rural consumer, there has been a sort of a democratization of information. That at one point in time, many places in UP, Bihar, Jharkhand, etc., were considered to be media dark places because they were very, what I would say, that television had not reached or television measurement hadn't reached. So therefore, TV penetration was considered to be very low in these markets. Now, what has happened is that these markets have now become mobile users. So therefore, it is easier, it's a sort of a contradiction, that actually certain rural markets are easier to reach through mobile than, let's say, television, which is usually considered the mass.
Which has changed a lot in the last few years.
Yes, of course. Also, what happens is that rural markets, or at least the small town India, is still growing in terms of media usage, especially print media. Like the world over, if you see, print media is either flat or declining, and you often hear stories about publications shutting down, newspapers shutting down, and so on and so forth. But in India, at least the top 3 publications, if you see, which are all Hindi publications, or even the regional language publications in Tamil, Telugu, Bengali, Gujarati, Marathi, they're actually growing. So because what is happening is that there is a large number of population which is coming into the readership fold. There is a bit of a drop maybe at the higher end of the media market. But overall, the rural growth is great in India. Also, one caveat here is that there is also we cannot say rural is equal to poor. That's often a stereotype that's there in people's mind.
True.
I think there is a, like we have in the urban audience, which we are more familiar with as marketeers or whatever, or as individuals. I think the rural market also has a continuum of affluence. The definition of affluence might be different, and not having money, but that spectrum is equally there in the rural market. So to that extent, I mean, it is changing in a very different way from, let's say, how urban India is changing. It is as interesting.
I am also curious to understand your current role, Mr. Dipta, where you are the business head of Vinod Chopra's film. So, little curious to know about that. What is your role, how this works, and we will move ahead with the further conversation right after that.
I mean, apart from watching films, I ended up reading a lot on Hindi films, and I ended up writing a lot of Hindi films. I used to write a blog, then I wrote several books on Hindi cinema.
I've actually gone through with your profile, and I saw you are an author of 7 books, if I'm not wrong.
That's right.
That's huge.
So those 7 books is what has often brought me in close contact with the film industry, though I've never been an industry insider before this. And as it so happened that Mr. Chopra's company was looking for a business head, and I kind of reached out to him and asked him that I had no experience in the film industry, but if my passion for films would substitute for the lack of knowledge. And he said, yeah, sure, let's try it out. I mean, what I look after is, on paper, I look after the business aspects of it, which is, let's say, marketing, revenue, rights, creation of rights, monetization of rights. As you know, Vinod Chopra Films has a lot of iconic films over the last 45 years.
Yes.
Since he's been making films. So from the 3 Idiots to Munna Bhai to 1942 to Parinda. I mean, there are so many films, cult as well as, super hits that are there. So it's to use, create more characters like that, ensure they get great business and, perpetuate some of the earlier characters. So that's on paper what my role is. Off paper, I do everything. I mean, that is there. It's a small organization. It's a creatively charged powerhouse, if I may call it. We are in the middle of launching our next film in October. So there I'm doing everything that needs to be done, starting from writing subtitles to, checking for prints and everything.
And I'm sure that you're actually living your life, if it is passion and it's so interesting, you never feel like you're going for a work. Let's understand, what makes India an attractive market for international brands. We've been talking about, how India is shaping, how, India is positioned and changing its positioning in the global market. And the next 1 decade or next 2 decades are for India. So now you just help me understand about this. What makes India an attractive market for the international brands?
From the last 30 years, ever since India kind of liberalized, India is seen to have a higher potential of success than even China, which has been growing much faster than us and is has ended up becoming a much larger consumer market than us. I think over the last 30 years, I mean, the entire world has looked at us with a lot of interest. Because, I mean, some of the things are obvious, that India has 1.3 billion people right now. There are, I think, 700 million mobile phone connections. It's a very young consumer market, and it is also reasonably qualified market. So therefore, both from a consumer point of view as well as from an employment point of view, India has a lot of potential, and it is growing in the right segments. That fabled demographic dividend is actually kicking in for India right now. So therefore, the young working class and the consuming class are both increasing in India, has been increasing in India for a very long time. I think the biggest, what companies, international companies, global brands see is that in a country like India, you could add a European country equivalent of consumers every year, right? I mean, there are 700 million mobile phone users, so which would mean that if you could get 5% of that to consume your product or app or whatever, you are looking at 35 million people, which is bigger than most European countries, so that's a big thing for many global brands, that suddenly your franchise increases by that amount. But here I would like to add a caveat. I mean, and which is kind of obvious, and many companies have found that out the hard way in the last 30 odd years. That you can look at 700 million mobile phone users, but if you look at, let's say, UPI users, people who actually transact on mobile, that about half of that. It's about 250, 300 million, less than half.
Okay.
Now, if you look at people who book, for example, order food online or book a cab online, if you look at the Zomato, Swiggy, Uber, Ola user, then that becomes even half. It becomes about 100 million people. And I'm giving very broad numbers, but I think you'll get the trend. Saying that there are 250 million UPI users, but only about 100 million users who do these microtransactions reasonably often. Now, when I look at OTT consumers, then that becomes even half. There are only about 50 million people who are 50 to 60 million people who are using some form of an OTT app, and of which only about 5-6 million have a subscription of, let's say, Netflix claim subscription is in the region of 5 to 6 million. Now, this is a very sharp drop from 700 million, which is a huge number, to 5 million, which is which is still big, but
decent.
It's very narrow, right? Or it has narrowed down. So I think I read it somewhere that there is a San Francisco India, and then there is a sub-Saharan African India. And unfortunately, both of them exist. So if you are a very premium product, there is a huge market for you in India. All the luxury car brands, all the luxury real estate brands in India are booming. But on the other hand, there is a very large number of consuming class who are at the edge of, I would call, destitution. COVID, for example, has brought a lot of them.
Yeah.
So the global brand must figure out that where in the spectrum do they fit. If they expect that all 700 million to be their user base, they're in for a rude surprise. But if they are looking at a smaller base which will grow over a period of time with the right investment, education, etc., then that's absolutely a fair thing. I mean, India is not just a door to be opened. It is a very complex market.
That's a great perspective. You brought here. India is a great market. It's a big market, but at the same time, you cannot deny that this is a complex market. It's very complex because of the diversity and, because of which there are in the languages also, there are a lot of other things. So.
Absolutely. In fact, now that you mentioned language, I work very closely with Mrinal Pandey, who's one of the legendary journalists of India. And she used to say this, that in India, every 50 kilometers, the language changes. I mean, what we call Hindi, if you go from the western end to the eastern end of UP, they sound like almost two different languages because the style of speaking, the words used, the intonation, the grammar, everything. I mean, as I found out in Tamil Nadu that forget the language, even the biryani changes every 50, 100 kilometers, because in a state as large as Tamil Nadu or Andhra, there are so many different kinds of food. I mean, the same food. I mean, we say a biryani is a biryani, but there are so many different types of biryani in Kerala, in Tamil Nadu, in Andhra Pradesh, in Telangana, that it like highlights the diversity that's almost become a cliche in India now.
Can you explain what a digital ecosystem in marketing is?
It is not so much as only marketing, but it is about how the world around us is changing.
Okay.
Right? If you see, let's say, 80s kid, a kid who was growing up in the 80s, right?
Mm-hmm.
To versus someone who was growing up in the 60s versus to someone who was growing up in the 2000s. If you just take these 20-year intervals, you could say the only difference between the 20s, the kid growing up in the 2000s is internet. But I think what happened is that with the way of consuming become different and with the way of consuming of the digital content, other content consumption also became different. For example, people say that because of the digital ecosystem, people's the attention span has become shorter.
Yeah.
Right. I would say that not really. At one end, that you have that 5-second skip ad option, so people do skip that and kind of move ahead. So they don't even want to watch an ad for 5 seconds.
Yeah.
But I would say that they are at the same time watching 8 seasons into 10 episodes of the shows that they like, and they are researching, going deeper into the characters, the people. If you take a show like Game of Thrones, it has become an industry by itself because people have just fallen in love with it. They have gone deep into the thing. So they are not having an attention deficit there. They are in fact having an attention surplus. They are putting all their attention into Game of Thrones or whatever is that. So if you take the Marvel ecosystem, if you take the Marvel universe, if you take many of the Indian content people, they are also leveraging this and going that. So I would say that this digital ecosystem is actually changed the human behavior on two ends. People have become very discerning. I don't think the concentration or attention spans have declined, but not if they want. What people have developed an aversion for is unwanted content. So earlier you had only one newspaper to read in the day. So you read it from page 1 top to page 20 end. I mean, you had no other choice. Right now you have so much other choice that people are saying, I can do without the newspaper. I will take my news on the go throughout the day. So when you talk about a digital ecosystem in marketing, just to kind of close the loop, what I think is that people must, or rather marketeers must be very clear that people have a choice. People are getting very discerning about choice. So you cannot help an advertising on them, unlike like in the days of single channel Doordarshan where you did not have a choice but to watch that ad. Now people do have that choice. So if you don't make that ad interesting, people will not watch it. One of my favorite quotes is that people don't want to watch an ad. People want to read something. They want to watch something interesting. And sometimes that is an ad. So you have to be that sometime and make it interesting.
Yeah. And this needs, demands a lot of creativity from the brands and businesses. Has your background in marketing that has prepared you for the responsibilities of a business head role? And are there any specific skills or the experiences from the marketing career that you find particularly valuable in your career right now, in your current role?
That marketing performs in an organization is not the creation of the ads or communication, etc., which is actually the end result of their work. I believe that the marketing the department or the marketer is the custodian of the customer's voice in the organization. So the primary responsibility of a marketer, and for that matter, the entire business, is to understand what the consumer is saying and give them that. So therefore, and that is the most important thing from the business, that you have to keep your consumer at the center and then figure out that how do you provide value to them. So therefore, if you are saying that, and I mean, obviously that if the objective of business is to increase revenue, increase profitability, etc., the only way of doing that is by putting the consumer at the center, which is marketing's responsibility. I would say that marketing responsibility is not to, if it had to do only one thing, it has to go to the consumer and understand, ask them what they want and really understand it and create an actionable thing for the organization. Also, one needs, can I get them to get involved in my product, use my product, get value of it? Because we often tend to say that, we have to create, testimonials. I mean, and that would create, but a customer will not give you testimonials unless you give them value. And some of the best testimonials are when the customer gives them spontaneously. Yeah. So therefore, you have to constantly listen to them. And there are many ways of listening to them apart from, meeting consumers and observing them. You can check out social media, you can look at digital analytics, and there are so many tools.
How do you balance your strategic vision with the practical execution of the marketing initiative?
So I think what has happened is that how do you target is that I think it always helps to have a strategic vision. Sometimes people have a long-term vision, like they say that, we have a vision 2026 or something like that. Sometimes they talk about that years that they have to hit a certain target in a certain year kind of a thing. I remember when I was with Marico many years back, it was the first time Marico hit a turnover of 1,000 crores. And the entire organization that year, we had a sort of a slogan which said Hazar Ki Dhoom. Okay. So because we were looking at doing 1,000 crore turnover. So therefore, I mean, you need to have that strategic vision, which is not in only the founders or the CXO's minds. It has to be a sort of ideally a coinage which every single person, the last sales person on the field, is aware of it. Okay. And from then on, it becomes, then, you are looking at that. So that the strategic vision must be very attractive. That there is this very famous story about President John F. Kennedy. He visited NASA and he saw a janitor who was cleaning the floor. And he asked him, saying, so what do you do? Maybe he was not doing anything. So he asked him, what do you do here? And he said that the janitor said that we are putting a man on the moon. So even the last person in that organization knew that the big, hairy, audacious goal, as they call it, is to put a man on the moon by the end of the decades.
I think that's the job of the organization and the higher management, how you are planning to spread this among all the stakeholders. Superb. So with this, now we will be moving towards a section called Rapid Fire Round. In this, we will be answering in one word, or the answer would be as minimum word as possible. Shall we start?
Yeah, sure.
Superb. What has been your favorite age so far?
18 to 24. It's not one age per se, but it's like that period.
What is your favorite work memory?
So I don't think I have one specific. There are too many to name, really.
Wow. So what has changed the most since you have started working here?
I've just been 2 months in this organization. So
okay, it's too early. What advice would you give an employee on their first day?
Sure. So the best advice that I would give is to tell them that you do not know anything. Now, I'll just qualify that a little bit. Saying that people on their new jobs tend to rush to change things. I think that's sometimes a little premature unless you're like starting a company or something.
If you could not work in this industry, what profession would you pursue?
I am following a dream to be here. So I would rather be here than anywhere else. It's been only 2 months. It's a sort of a passion project. So yeah, this is where I would rather be. That's why I'm here.
When are you most productive?
I'm actually productive for short bursts throughout the day. So I don't know if I'm a morning person or a night person. I don't have it like that, but I can't concentrate for a very long time.
No. What would you change about yourself if given a chance?
What would I change myself? I would be a little more, outgoing, if I may call it that.
What advice would you give to your younger self?
What advice I would give? I would tell him that nobody is going to remember your anything foolish that you do.
So I think with this, it's a wonderful conversation, and we had gathered a lot of different aspects of marketing businesses through this piece of conversation, Mr. Diptakirti, and I'm so thankful, happy that you have agreed for this conversation, and we had a great time today.
Same here. Thank you very much. It was lovely talking to you.
Same. I'm sure कि आपको ये वीडियो बहुत ही insightful and informative लगा होगा. Let us know in the comment section which part of the video you loved the most. हम ऐसे ही इंडिया के top business brand secrets आपके पास लाते रहते हैं. Please do not forget to subscribe our channel Icons Behind Brands. And that's all for today. I am Devleena Neogi signing off until next time.